Okay, so why don't we kick off? So you're all very welcome to week 3 of the meditation course. Nice to have you all back here again. Well done for coming on this lovely sunny day. Let's just look at what we're going to be doing this week. So let me just share my screen here. So, oops, wrong one. Just give me 1 second here. So what we'll do today, Kev, I just checked that you can see that okay? Yeah, great. So what we do today is, today's class is week 3, and we're going to do some introductions and recap as we normally do. So recap of last week, and I might just check with you how you got on with the home practice. And then we'll do a very short body scan. And this week then in the second half, what we're going to be looking at is the other practice that we do, the other meditation practice that we do, which is the loving kindness practice. So we're going to start by exploring loving kindness, and I'm going to do a bit of a brainstorm about that. And then we'll look at the practice, which is called the metta bhavana. That's the Buddhist phrase for it. But what it translates as is the development of loving kindness. So we've already been working at cultivating mindfulness, and now we're going to look at how to cultivate emotional positivity and emotional robustness more. So cultivating love, kindness, friendliness for ourselves and for other people. And as usual, at the end, then we'll have a period looking at home practice, and we'll take questions and so on as well. Okay, so just to remind you what we did last week, we looked at what were called 4 foundations, or the 4 applications of mindfulness. So these are different ways, like we looked at mindfulness already, but I was saying that it's useful to have a kind of a schema or a way of looking at how to cultivate mindfulness, a structure, you could say. So we looked at applying mindfulness to our body, to the feeling tone of our experience. So feeling tone is like whatever sensations we experience, it'll be pleasant or painful, simple as that. So if we have a physical sensation, it'll be pleasant or painful, or maybe somewhere in between, like neutral. If we have an emotional experience, it'll be pleasant or painful. If we have a thought, it'll tend to be pleasant or painful. So everything we experience we'll find at some level pleasant or painful. And that's what we call in Buddhism feeling tones. This is all in the notes, by the way. You can check them out if you weren't here last week. We looked at being aware of our emotions, and we looked at being aware of our thoughts. And in particular with our emotions and thoughts, we were tuning into the emotional weather and the thoughts associated with that as well. And we looked a bit at the importance of setting up well and finishing well in meditation too. So often the setup certainly that you'll have been doing with the guided meditations will lead you through those 4 foundations of mindfulness each time you set up, and also the lead out at the end, in particular just sitting. So that's what we looked at last week. Now, so I'm going to stop sharing. So what we did last week then is we did a little poll. So I'm going to share the poll with you again. It was around this time our Wi-Fi went last week, but hopefully we're okay this week. So I just want you to fill in a few options. It'll only take about 3 minutes. It worked for most people last week. 1 or 2 people it didn't work for. So hopefully it'll work. But I just want to get a sense of how often people meditated. Your homework this week was to do the mindfulness of breathing every day. You could do the body scan as well if you found that useful. It's a very useful practice. And the other bit of homework was to see if you could apply the 4 foundations of mindfulness outside of meditation as well. Maybe now and again in your day, just stop and become aware of your body, how you're feeling in terms of feeling tones, your emotions and thoughts. So there's a quick question in there about that. It's anonymous. We won't be checking up, so answer honestly. And if you want to write any comments or questions in the chat box as well, you're very welcome to. So I'll just launch the poll now. And so it should come up on your screen, hopefully now. You got it, Kev?
Yeah.
Great, good. I'm afraid it only allows you to do multiple choice. So the answers might not reach the fullness of what happened for you during the week. Great, so the results are coming in. Thank you. And don't forget that you can, if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat as well, if you've finished voting, or any comments about how you got on during the week. I don't think mine is submitting. Okay. Not sure what's going on, Catherine. Poll not working again. So we've got 64 people voted fully. So maybe your vote has come true, but it's just not showing correctly. I can't tell who has voted and who hasn't, unfortunately. Apologies if it's not working okay. I think it got to about 80% last time, and then I think some people have problems with it. Kevin, when you finish the polling, does it go, or does it, what comes up on it?
I don't actually do the poll, I just see results.
Okay. Thanks for the link to the YouTube video on posture. Yeah. Great, yeah. Good. Is meditation for everyone? Asking this because it felt like meditation left me with no energy. That's interesting. It might be that you're making too much effort in meditation, and you just just maybe focus more on relaxing with each out breath, Valentina. So, and also it might be just that there is underlying tiredness that's coming up anyway when you meditate. So that might be something. Both the meditation cushion online have made a big difference. That's great. You notice you're racing ahead of yourself more since you started the course. I have a friend who's an experienced meditation teacher, and she said that she noticed she was angrier actually when she learned to meditate. But what she really meant was that she noticed that she was angry more. It was there anyway. So you might notice that you might feel like you're getting more distracted since you start the course, but it's often that you're just noticing your distractions more, or noticing just how much you're not fully present as well. Good, Mark got on well. Ailish, there's a follow-up email to the notes to the course every week. So the notes are usually in that. I'll include the link. It's the same. All the notes are available on the page where the download meditations are. So I'll send you those afterwards. If you don't get the notes for some reason, drop me an email and I'll send it to you personally. For some reason, at the end of the week, I found it more difficult to meditate. Yeah, it just seems to vary from day to day. I don't know why some days are better than others, as the song goes. I wouldn't worry too much. The main thing is to keep doing it. One thing that happens is that some days are good and some days are bad, and some days are good and some days are bad, but the overall progress is up. But from day to day, it's very hard to tell that. But overall, you will see a progress, and you might find that you're not doing habits after a while that you normally do, unhelpful habits. I found I was more comfortable slouching on the couch. Well, look, do what's most comfortable, and if you're not falling asleep, don't worry. But do experiment being maybe a little bit more upright than you naturally would slouch in. You could vary it, but mainly do what works. Mainly do what works. Yeah, setting up for meditation really good. Feeling more focused but agitated, almost too focused on doing jobs. Yeah, that can happen, and I think there's maybe more body scan would be good for that, because when you're in your body, it's a lot. It tends to help with getting agitated. Roisin, yeah, your body does sway sometimes. It might be a release of energy. The main thing might just be just let things happen and don't get too worried about them in that kind of case. Energy, sometimes strange things happen. You feel very big, you feel very small, and so on. Your hands feel very heavy. You can sway. Don't worry too much about it, unless don't sway off your cushions, obviously. Let's just look at the polling then. So I think I can share the results with everyone then. So the majority of people meditated every day, which is really great. So well done, everyone. The vast majority of you meditated 4, 5, or 6 days. So that's really great. Well done, everyone. Well done, everyone. Nobody admitted or did no meditation. And welcome to the 2 people who weren't here last week. If you are just joining the course, we are starting a new course from week 1 next week on Wednesday mornings. So if you want to go back and start that again, rather than, you're very welcome here, obviously, to finish the course, but you might like to do the course again on Wednesday mornings, and that's the same time as this one. It's a different Zoom link, but you can see the details on the website. Okay, great. Is music with background relaxing, is meditation with background relaxing music? Well, I tend to go silent myself. I mean, I'd be very careful of letting the mind get attached onto that. But if it's the only thing that works for you, do it. But try it without it. I think it's good not to need props like music. You just need to be able to sit with yourself. Ultimately, sometimes my heart felt really, really heavy. Yeah, that happens. That happens. And sometimes, difficult emotions just need to be felt and then to be released. I'm sorry, so sorry, with the polling then. So most people meditated mid-morning. Maybe that's a symptom of the lockdown and people being at home. So that's good, but people there's a even enough distribution. Reasons for not doing it, well, we forgot to prioritize it. And other, unfortunately, we can't analyze other much more than that, but you could say it in the comments if you want. I think with prioritizing it, I think we just have to be organized. It might be that you just need to write a big post-it on your mirror or something, or schedule an alarm, or just try and build it into your day more fully. Ideally, like, you get up in the morning or whenever, it's like brushing your teeth. You wouldn't forget to brush your teeth. You wouldn't forget to meditate. It's as simple as that. That's the kind of thing you want to have by the end. So yeah, just look at ways, like maybe what you could do now. If I can remember to do this at the end, let's see, when are we going to do it tomorrow? When are we going to do it tomorrow? Let's decide again. And maybe each meditation you could, at the end, as part of your finishing, decide when you're going to do it tomorrow, the next day again. Yeah. Oh, okay, thanks for rushing. So some people put other because nothing really got in the way of their meditation. So that's good. So I'm not sure if we can assume all 30% of people were having that experience, but that's nice to hear, actually. I should put that in as an option. Actually, I'll put that in for next week. Kev, could you take a note of that? I'll put in, nothing got in the way of my meditation practice. So that's a really nice option to have as well. Tom, how do you know if you're making progress? I do better by myself without the guided voice. That's fine. So on the guided meditation page, there are sits which are just lead in and then just bells and then lead out. And there are also sits which are just bells. So if you prefer those, you can go and use them as well. How do you know you're making progress? You just keep doing it. And then one day you realize, oh, I don't do that thing anymore. Or someone says to you, God, you've been a lot calmer since you started meditating. And you try not to take that too personally, but that's the kind of thing you can do. Let's see. That's great. John, it's been useful. Good. Also, lots of people have been agreeing with the other because nothing got in the way. Well, that's really good. That reassures me. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, that's fine. Yeah, good. Thanks, Silva. Okay. And quite a few of you said that you did use just about half of you said you remember to use the 4 foundations and it was useful, and almost half said, well, a small number said it didn't do much. That's okay, and almost half forgot. But there you go. So again, it's a question of scheduling it, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, good. So what we'll do now is, let's see, what time are we? Yeah, what we'll do now is, why don't we just do a very short body scan just to help us tune into ourselves before we go into the loving kindness half of the morning, okay? So why don't you set yourself up comfortably, and by this stage you know what you need to do, hopefully. If you weren't here in previous weeks, just try and find some way of sitting comfortably upright and alert, but at the same time not straining, and a position you can sit in for 5 minutes. That's how long we'll be doing it. Okay, so when you're ready, just closing your eyes. This will be a very short little body scan relaxation. So just tuning in firstly to the sense of the room around us. We have our eyes closed, but we can still feel the room, have a sense of the room, the building. We can still hear whatever sounds are there. We can have a sense of the contact of our body with the floor, with the cushions, with the chair. So really taking in the points of contact between ourselves and the ground, the chair, the cushions. It's a nice way of bringing ourselves out of our head and down into our bodies. It's quite a tactile experience. Becoming aware of the stomach and the abdomen, maybe taking a deeper breath or two into the stomach, into the abdomen area. Becoming aware of the chest and the heart area. Maybe noticing the rise and fall of the rib cage as we breathe in and as we breathe out. And just spending a moment then to see, are we comfortable? Are we at ease? Is our experience of sitting here pleasant, painful? Or is it neutral or blank? Or are we just pretty okay? Whatever we find, just being open to that. What's the emotional weather like? Tuning into our hearts, or wherever we feel our emotions. It might be in the guts, it might be in the throat. It might be that we're quite happy, it might be that we're quite sad. And whatever's there is fine, just opening to that, allowing it to be. But just being open to whatever emotions are there can help them be okay. Can help even upgrade them, transform them for the better as well. Breathing with them if they're difficult. And noticing if there's any recurrent thoughts happening, any persistent thinking that we can't just let go of. And again, just feeling the tone of that. Is it pleasant to do this? Is it painful to do it? Letting it be. like clouds in the clear blue sky, just letting them form and dissolve. We don't have to be identified with our emotions or our thoughts. We can just let them play out. And now starting to become aware of the room around us again. Starting to actively listen to the sounds, if there are sounds, to broaden out again into the room. In your own time, reintroducing movement, wiggling fingers and toes. In your own time, coming out of the posture if you wish, opening your eyes. Okay, so that was just a very short little tuning into ourselves, really tuning into the 4 foundations of mindfulness a bit. But it's nice to do that. I really enjoy those ones. It does make me feel more grounded and more, well, happier, really, I have to say. Okay, so we're about halfway through. So I just wanted to just move on to something. Sorry, hang on a second. Where am I now? So I just wanted to flag the usual. So the course is being done on a donation basis. So if you want to give a donation to help support the centre, we're almost entirely dependent upon donations at the moment. We're very happy to provide all these things for people: meditation courses, Buddhism courses, and lots of other stuff that we're doing. We're hoping to put on a retreat next month as well. And it'll all be free. It'll all be online for free. But the way we do that then is that we're able to, I'm sorry, I know the sound is breaking up a little bit. We're putting on all these events and courses in the centre. And the way we're able to do that is just by asking for donations. So if you're in a position where you can give a donation, please do go to the link. I'll email you the link after the class. And you can give a one-off donation. You can give a standing order if you're so moved, and you can give as much or as little as you want. And if you're not in a position to give a donation, that's perfectly fine as well. And also, you can see all of our online events on the centre as well. So dublinbuddhistcentre.org/online. So you can check all of our events out. If you're interested in Buddhism, there's a very good talk on this Friday evening by a very senior order member called Subhuti. So you could come along to that. It'll be a Buddhist talk followed by a meditation. Anyways, just wanted to point those out. Okay. So thanks. Kevin's just put those online, putting those in the comments bar. Yeah. Okay, just one more question there. Will recurrent painful thoughts ease with meditation? I would say they would, yeah. I mean, the best way to help painful emotions and thoughts ease is to feel them and try and feel the feeling tone associated with them. And that is how you kind of discharge painful emotions and thoughts. If you push them away, they'll tend to just recur more strongly. If that's what you need to do, that's what you do. But if you can actually feel the emotions, if you can actually feel the thoughts and not add to them, but just feel them, they'll tend to discharge. It's like emotions are like wheels that we run on and keep the wheel turning, or thoughts as well. And if we can just step off them and not run on them, not keep them going, over time they'll slow down and stop. And the more you just allow yourself to feel them, the quicker they'll stop as well. So if you have painful thoughts or emotions, try and breathe with them and not get too caught up in the story of them. You don't have to actually identify with your emotions and thoughts. You can just let them play out without getting involved in them. Sometimes we feel like if we're not, our thoughts and emotions will just disappear off into the void or something, you know. But you can just let them play out without getting involved in them. And the important thing is just to feel the feeling tone of them. Are they pleasant? Are they painful? And that'll help them pass through much more quickly. Okay, sometimes another question. Sometimes when I meditate, I feel my heartbeat increase. Is that normal? Yeah, I think what they found, what I remember reading one time, is that your breathing slows down and your pulse goes up very slightly. But as long as you're not, if it's going like mad fast, there's probably something you need to change. Maybe you can focus on the more relaxing element. Every time you breathe out, just letting go and just seeing if you're controlling the breath a bit. But if it continues to be a problem, it might just be in one particular sit. I don't know, it might be as simple as you had coffee beforehand or something. But if it continues to be a problem, you can drop me a line and I can chat to you about it, yeah. Okay, so let's move into loving kindness and what loving kindness is. So I want you now to reflect upon this question, okay? Now, if you're in the center in person, I'd get you into groups of 2 and 3 to talk about this and work it out. But I want you just to reflect for 2 or 3 minutes maybe on this question. What would it be like to have a completely positive relationship with yourself? What would it feel like? How would you behave? So normally what we do is we give ourselves a hard time. We tend to be hard on ourselves. So what would it be like to feel completely positive about yourself? What would it feel like? How would you behave? So let's just have a think about that for a moment. How would you be in relation to the world? So I'll give us 2 minutes to have a think about that. Okay, so sorry, I was just checking a technical issue with Kevin there. So maybe you could, if you have any thoughts and you're happy to share them in the chat box, that would be great. What would it be like? Okay, good. So Adrian says it would be a relief. Good, yeah. What would it be like to feel completely positive about yourself? I would be more confident. Oh, great, they're all streaming in. I would prioritize self-care. It would be a challenge, Mark, yeah. It would make it so much easier to love everyone else. True, yeah. Trust myself, yeah. Be very different. Would feel great. No self-sabotage. Thanks. Yeah, that's great. They're great comments, yeah. More focused on the present and less worried about the future. Yeah, it would make the world a kinder place, definitely. It would feel light and happy, yeah, burden-free, yeah. I would be free to be myself. That's a really good one. I would imagine all my relationships would be loving. Yeah, it would feel so light. Boundaries would be very strong. Yeah, it would be probably means stronger relationships with others, liberating and lower my defenses, forgive myself. Communicating with others would be completely authentic, more friendly to myself. I think you would feel very smug and not very easy to understand the issues others have. Well, let's come back to that one. Freeing, less self-critical, would take things less personally. Yeah, that's a really big one. No recurrent painful regret, more relaxed and creative. Would stop the loops of revisiting past situations and conversations. Good, they're all really good comments. Thank you for those. So, and more of them are coming in. Great. Present, less stress and freedom. Less stress, more freedom. Less self-talk. Okay. So, good. that's fine. So maybe it's not something you need to worry about as well. So some people might have a completely positive relationship with yourself already. So Buddhism is really clear that there's no reason to be unkind to yourself. Okay, so there is no reason to give yourself a hard time. There's no reason to be like, in a way, we do things to ourselves that we would never do to another person. Like imagine saying all the things to your friend or your family that you say internally to yourself at times. So Buddhism is really clear that there's no reason to be cruel to yourself or unkind to yourself. It doesn't mean that you can't critique yourself or feel like you could have done better in situations, but you do that without any kind of malice or cruelty or unkindness. So to come back to, I think Fiona's point, you probably wouldn't actually feel smug. Well, you might, obviously, you might feel smug, but in my experience, it's not quite like that. If you can be just genuinely positive towards yourself, you don't tend to feel a need to be smug anymore because you feel quite complete in yourself. So I had a friend who was on a retreat one time, and he had this big insight after meditating for years and years. He had been meditating for years and years up to that point. And his realization was there's absolutely no reason to be unkind to yourself, because I think it's pretty clear that there's no reason to be unkind to other people. We probably all agree with that pretty quickly. It doesn't mean you can't critique other people. You couldn't say, hey, I think you could have done better there, but it doesn't mean you get unkind to them. And in the same way, just why would yourself be any different? So when we start off this practice that we're going to do, we start off with just trying to be okay with ourselves, actually, and kind to ourselves. And again, that doesn't mean that we become a walkover, or we become meek, or that we lose our potency or anything like that. It's not that we're taking a happy pill, Tom, but thanks for that comment. That's a good one. It's more that we learn to relate positively to ourselves, and thereby relate positively to other people as well. So hopefully this is one of the things that we can see when we do the practice. It can have quite a powerful effect. So I really do mean that. There is no reason to be unkind to yourself in any way, shape or form. Okay, so hopefully you'll see that during the week as we're doing the practice. Do try that out for yourself as well. What it feels like. Does your world fall apart if you stop being unkind to yourself or negatively critical? As I said, you can be positively critical, but I mean negatively critical. And ask yourself, would I say what I'm saying to myself to my best friend? Yeah, or to someone else? And you probably wouldn't most of the time. Okay, so the next question then is, let's see, so sorry. I want you to think of a good friend and recollect their good qualities. So don't write these into the chat box just yet, because there's a part 2 to this question that I want you to really answer as well. So I just want you to think of a good friend, someone you naturally get on well with, someone you naturally like, someone you naturally admire. Don't spend too long picking someone, just choose someone. And I want you just to think about, well, what are the qualities about them that you admire? Think about those qualities in that person. Yeah, let's just do that for 2 minutes. Can I just check that people can hear me okay, or did that break up? Because Kevin is having some sound problems. If not, I'll repeat myself again. If someone could comment in the chat, that would be great. Okay, it might just be Kevin. Okay, Grant. Thank you. Okay, great, good, thank you. I'm getting about 60 people saying can hear, okay. Good. We'll work on it from our end next time for Kevin. So anyways, think of your good friend's qualities, you know? Okay, so the second part of this question now is, I want you to, and this is what I want you to write into the chat box. So how do you feel now towards that person? How would you describe what you're feeling towards that person? So take a moment to feel what are you actually feeling right now towards that person? How would you describe that? Good, thank you. Yeah, they're all coming in now. Grateful, warm, connected. You missed them. Sorry to hear that. Love, loyal, caring, supporting, loving, respectful, happy they're your friend, fond of them, genuine connection, heart opening, softness. This is lovely to read, by the way. Warm, lots of warmth, love and connected, lucky, love, positivism. Miss seeing them, of course. Kev, Miriam raised her hand, you got that? Admiration, compassion, trusting, pure love, great. Honesty, love, yeah, great. Good. So, great, good. Loyalty, unconditional love. We usually only rejoice in people when they've died, don't we, in Ireland? So, like, it's a nice thing to do to bring someone's good qualities to mind while they're still here. And it's something that's very traditional in Buddhism, actually. To rejoice in people's merits and good qualities. We call it rejoicing in their merits. And the Buddha did it again and again with his disciples. And you know, we often do it in the Buddhist Centre with people when something big has happened in their life, like, you know, when someone is about to get sent off to be ordained, or not sent off, but when they're about to head off to be ordained. Like Kevin was earlier this year, but unfortunately his ordination retreat got cancelled because of the COVID virus. But we rejoiced in his merits in the centre. It was a lovely experience. Okay, good. So all of these qualities that are coming through are really communicating, really leading well onto the next thing that I wanted to look at. So what I wanted to look at then is, I'm sorry, one last thing actually. So all those qualities that we feel, there's no reason why we can't feel those towards ourselves as well. Yeah. So we should be able to appreciate, have, well, compassion, love for ourselves as well. There's no reason not to have those qualities towards ourselves, or those feelings towards ourselves as well. We won't get, we can do that without getting intoxicated, I believe. Yep. And Ashlyn said, when someone read about a tradition in Africa that when someone makes a mistake, they gather around them, and instead of giving out to them, they remind them of their good qualities. That's really great to hear. Yeah, that would really work actually. Because in a way, you're putting people back in touch with what's possible for them, and that will bring them back into positivity again. Yeah. Okay, so what we're looking at now then is the metta bhavana, the development of loving kindness. And a big question that we need to address is, what is this word metta? So metta is a Buddhist word. It's from the Pali language. The language is called Pali. And along with Sanskrit, Pali is one of the two main Buddhist languages. There's lots of different versions of Sanskrit used in different traditions, but there's a particular version of Sanskrit along with this language called Pali, which is, it's like the Buddhist Latin, you could say, the Buddhist Latin. And Pali is kind of, we reckon it's what's closest to what the Buddha would have spoken. And we use this word metta because it's very hard to get an exact translation of what it means. It's translated as friendliness. It's translated as loving kindness. It's translated as empathy. It's translated as warmth. It's translated as concern. A lot of the qualities which you guys listed there for your friend are very much aspects of metta as well. Even Ashlyn said smiley, and I think that is a good one as well for metta. Gentleness, love, admiration, honest, you know, let's see, where's my mouse gone? There we go. You know, warmth, love, respect, admiration, all those are qualities of metta. Often it's translated as love, but love can be a complicated word. I remember again, Rat the Bandu, the guy who taught me to meditate, saying, you know, two people say they love fish. And for one person, that means they love having a big aquarium full of fish that they look after lovingly. For another person, that means eating fish. And those are two very different meanings of the word, especially if you're a fish. So Love can be a complicated word, you know, but for me, what works for me is kind of kindness, I think. Wanting someone to be well. The more technical translation I've put at the bottom here now, and or the full, maybe technical is the wrong word, but the fuller definition is a real desire for someone to be well and happy. The desire for the well-being and happiness of the person, another person usually, but that can include yourself as well, actually. So when you feel metta, it's not just that it's not necessarily that you're feeling warmed towards them, although that can be true as well. You just want them to be well. You want them to be happy. It's as simple as that. It's said to be a desire, a positive desire in Buddhism. A volition is the technical term. So it's that you want them to be well. You want them to be happy. Yeah. And Roisin, that's a very good question. How do you feel metta for people you don't like? We'll come back to that in a few minutes, because part of the practice is doing metta for people that you don't like. Okay, so let's come back to that in a minute. So let's just stay with, say, the good friend for now, to keep it simple. So you want your friend to be well. You want your friend to be happy. Yeah. So I think we can all probably agree that most of the time we want our friends to be well. We want our friends to be happy. I'm sure there are times when you don't, you know, we're only human after all. But, you know, according to Buddhism, this is a quality that isn't just, we don't have a certain amount and it's set there. So Buddhism is really clear that whatever quality we want to develop, like mindfulness, like metta, like loving kindness, we can choose to cultivate more and more and more of it by doing certain things like meditation. Or indeed, we can cultivate the opposites. We can cultivate hatred more and more and more if we want to as well. So the mind is very fluid and ever-changing. And the more we focus on something, the more we dwell in something, the more that quality becomes part of us, or the bigger a part of us that quality becomes. Mark, does it apply to family? Yeah, usually your family, in my experience, your family appear, there's different stages in the practice, as we'll say. So usually a good friend, you know, family members will appear as the good friend, or they'll appear as a difficult person, and they'll often bounce between the two, I'm afraid. If you're anything like me anyway, they will. Yeah, so we can cultivate metta by simply tuning into it. We all have a degree of metta. Yeah, we all have a degree of metta. You couldn't be a normal human being without having some degree of metta, some degree of concern for people's well-being. Yeah, and the practice really is just about tuning into that already existing feeling of well-wishing for someone, dwelling with it and allowing it to grow. That's really what it comes down to, dwelling with it and allowing it to grow. So we bring the friend to mind, and we just bring to mind them, and we wish them well. We want them to be well and happy. It can help, like we did earlier, to dwell upon their good qualities, and that will grow as well. Paul, I'll come back to that question in a minute. Let's see, what else do I need to say? Getting in touch with metta. There's different ways of getting in touch with metta. So a lot of the time the practice is about getting in touch with metta and then allowing it to grow for the person. Well, let's go through the stages actually first. So what we're going to do in the stages, so this is it's like the mindfulness of breathing. It has 4 stages. So the development of loving kindness actually has 5 stages. So we begin by developing metta for ourselves. Yeah, we remember what we did earlier, that it's always a good thing to have metta for yourself. That doesn't mean that you become really self-intoxicated. You might think that happens, but in practice that doesn't really happen. Yeah, if it's really metta, it's really just you sitting there thinking, yeah, I wish I was well and happy. I wish I was free from suffering. I wish I would grow and develop. I wish I will grow and develop. We'll come back to those specifics in a minute. Okay, and this is sometimes the most difficult stage for people actually, because they can be harder on themselves than even their enemies, you know. And also it's the first stage that you do, so you're kind of still warming up to the practice, but it's a very, very profound stage and can be very transformative. Yeah. Okay, the next stage then is we develop loving kindness, we develop metta, we develop concern for their well-being for a friend. So it's good to pick someone simple in this stage. So in the early stages of this practice, of the loving kindness practice, you want to just keep it really, really simple until you get used to the practice, until you get used to what metta is. You know, don't bring in like someone you're romantically attracted to. Don't bring in someone maybe who has died. Don't bring in someone who's like way older or way younger than you. Just keep it really simple initially. And then when you get the hang of the practice, you can expand out to include those people as well. Obviously, if you bring in someone you're sexually attracted to or in a relationship, you might just get into something else. If you bring to mind someone who's dead, you might get into grief, you know, although that's a very positive thing to do down the line when you're more up and running, to bring to mind a person who has died, who you love. Keep it really simple, like just a peer person, maybe someone the same gender as you, just to keep it really simple. And what we do is we bring them to mind. So I often maybe just have a sense of them there in front of me, or imagine them in their lives, going about their lives. And I just sit there thinking, you know, maybe I bring to mind Kevin, who's a good friend, and I think, you know, may you be well, Kevin. You know, I really want you to be well and happy, and I cultivate a feeling of well-wishing for you. The third stage then is a bit more challenging. So we're going to get a bit more challenging in certain ways, is that we pick someone who's neutral. We feel neutral towards. So this is someone that we don't know particularly well, and we don't have particularly strong feelings for one way or the other. And there's about 7 billion of them out there, yeah? So what I tend to try and do is I pick someone who I can bring to mind easily enough, but who I don't particularly know very well or don't have any particular emotional connection with. So it might be like the person down in your local shop, or you know, someone you work with but you've never really talked to, and they work down the office, a bit further down the office. You can bring them to mind. It's good to be able to bring them to mind a bit, so you need to know them in that regard, but you might not have any strong feelings for them one way or the other. And what we're trying to do with this stage, with metta here, is that we're trying to get beyond a neutral response to people. We're trying to cultivate a state of mind, a state of being, where no matter who we meet, even if we don't know them, we will respond warmly and concernedly for them, for their welfare. And that would make a really big difference in the world. In some ways, you could argue that more damage or difficulties are caused in the world through indifference than outright enmity, if you see what I mean. So more difficulties in the world are caused by indifference than enmity. So we could really make a difference to the world if we could respond kindly to whoever we meet, regardless of whether we know them or not. Yeah. So an important stage. The challenge here is often boredom, because they're just not that interesting actually to us. So we're trying to develop loving kindness towards a neutral person. And here we come to the difficult person. So Roisin, this is your question, and Paul as well to a degree. So what we're trying to do here is overcome our enmity towards this person. So apparently, I've never been able to track down the source for this, but the Buddha said at one point that doing enmity or ill will or hatred, as it's called in Buddhism, we call it ill will usually, or hatred. It's like picking up a burning hot coal from a fire and throwing it at people. Yeah. So hopefully the metaphor, the image is clear, that to hate someone is very damaging to ourselves, firstly, never mind damaging to them. And we might not even hit them with the burning hot coal anyway, so it's all been for nothing, you know? So, and hatred is, while it can feel seductively powerful or whatever, hatred is always a negative, unhelpful emotion in Buddhism. There's no place for hatred whatsoever, yeah? And what we're trying to do is get rid of usually hatred, which is quite damaging to us and to everyone around us and to the difficult person. We're usually trying to get rid of, well, it's called a poison actually in Buddhism. You know, we're trying to get rid of something that's a bit poisonous, a bit toxic to us. Yeah, it really is never helpful to do hatred for someone. Yeah, it's okay to have difficulties with people. I think, you know, some people are just difficult, and they do things that we just cannot condone or whatever. But that's a bit difficult. That's a bit different to hatred, yeah? And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to leave aside the difficulty for now, and just try and wish them well as a human being anyway, yeah? Martin Luther King had this great saying where he said that when God said you had to love your neighbor, it didn't mean you had to like them. So when God said you had to love your neighbor, it didn't mean you had to like them. And, you know, leaving aside the reference to God, which you may or may not believe in, I think there's something really true in that there's no reason not to love people. It doesn't mean you have to like them or approve of what they do. In fact, you might disapprove even more firmly after doing this, but at least you're doing it on the basis of emotional positivity, rather than hatred, you know. So hopefully that answers Roshin's question. I think you can feel metta for people that you don't like. And often in this stage, it is a challenging stage. What you're trying to do is leave aside the difficulty for now. What I do is I imagine them in a situation where I'm not there, and maybe imagine them in their lives with their kids, with their family. Try and realize they're actually a human being as well, who, like me, just wants to be happy and well. And maybe they're doing it in misguided ways, but that's no reason to hate them. And actually, I can wish them well. I can wish them happiness. I can wish them freedom from suffering. I can wish that they grow and develop. And it doesn't mean that I have to agree with them. And it also doesn't mean that you have to become a walkover. So this is a question that's often asked as well. Does that mean I just have to, become a weakling then and let people walk all over me? You might think that again, like in the stage one, but metta, if it's really metta, makes you very robust and strong. And with metta, you can much more clearly say to people, no, I don't agree with that. And it's much cleaner. And it's a lot easier say no, actually, to things that you're not happy with, or point things out. And this is maybe something you just have to try out and see. But, look, the examples from me are like order member, friends of mine in the order who have been ordained 40 years and practicing this practice for that long. And you absolutely will not make them do anything they don't want to do, you absolutely will not if you're in a state of metta, you're stronger, you're less likely to be pushed around and manipulated. So really don't worry about that aspect of things. Okay, so there's a couple more questions coming in. Where does forgiveness fit into the concept of metta? So it might mean that the difficult person stage is quite difficult and you have to get into a degree of forgiveness, a degree of letting go, and so on. And that might be something you do in the practice, or it might be something that you reflect upon outside the practice. When you begin this practice, I would recommend picking someone very simple, someone who you just find a bit irritating, not someone who has set out to destroy you in your life, your absolute nemesis who waits outside your door every morning to run over your cat or anything like that. Just pick someone really simple that you can kind of handle for now. Pick someone in your life. Maybe for me, it's like, a good example I've heard is you're sitting on a bus and someone gets on and you kind of wish, oh, I know that person. I hope they don't sit beside me. Simple as that. So choose someone like that initially, and then you can work your way up to your great nemesis further down the line. Yeah. And also pick someone who's real. Don't pick Donald. I mean, not that Donald Trump isn't real, unfortunately, but pick someone who's actually in your life, rather than an abstract politician or Hitler or someone like that, Okay, so a few more questions. Is it binary? Is it binary hatred or love? I think it's a complicated question, I guess. Buddhism presents it pretty simply that you're either doing a certain degree of aversion, pushing away, or you're doing metta. Maybe that's something to try out for yourself and see how you get on. Another question: how would you react from someone from an emotion, like when someone is attacking you? Well, obviously, hopefully they're not attacking you in the metta bhavana, obviously, but I guess there's nothing wrong with protecting yourself, and maybe you just can't do metta for that person right now, but maybe it's a goal you can set down the line, or something you can hope for down the line. Yeah, I mean, you have to obviously, metta doesn't mean opening yourself up to being attacked like making yourself vulnerable in that way. Again, there's a lot that could be said about that. You could rule them out of your life and not enter into metta with them. I mean, the problem with difficult people is that we tend to dwell upon the difficulty and we tend to stay with the difficulty. So if you are still dwelling upon the difficulty, or it's bubbling around in there somewhere, I think it's probably better to bring it out and look at it and try and work with it. A lot of stuff, just because it's not in conscious mind, it does bubble around in there. And your quality of your life will be much better if you have no hatred towards people or difficulties with people, at least in the sense of aversion, Paul, yes, it is hard when you're faced with behavior that damages others. And I mean, maybe the metaphysical thing to do would be to step in and intervene, So a mother might be, or a father might be very strict with their child and say, no, you're not doing that. but that could be a real act of metta. So don't think that metta is purely being all soft and loving. You know, metta can be very direct. And yeah, thanks, Katie. So it is good to send metta and healing for someone when they do upset you. Yeah, I know, Tom, that's a difficult question, the victims of the Troubles. I mean, one of the strongest experiences of metta for me was during the, I can't remember his name now, but watching, if you're of the same age as me, you'll remember the Enniskillen bombings where the man was talking about where he was dying, his daughter was dying within earshot of him. I can't remember, he might have been holding her hand or something. And he said he forgave the bombers. And I couldn't understand it at the time. I was only in my teens, and I thought, why would you want to forgive someone who's done something so horrible? But it was real metta, I think. It was really profound metta that maybe puts our little difficulties with our housemates or whatever into perspective as well. Senator Wilson, thanks, Anne Marie. That's great. Yeah. Okay. This part of metta is so interesting. We could talk about it forever, but we'll need to move on a little bit. We can come back to it again next week because we'll need to actually do the practice as well. Okay. So the last stage then is that the fifth stage is, it's in two parts. So firstly, we equalize our metta for all four people. So four people being ourselves, the good friend, the neutral person, the difficult person. And how I usually do this is I imagine us sitting in a circle and just open my heart equally to all four of us, yeah? And then in the second part of the fifth stage, we open our metta to more and more people, to everyone in the room, everyone in the building, everyone in the area. And we just open our heart to more and more people until we have metta for all beings everywhere, yeah? So that's quite an ask in some ways. It's not that you're trying to squeeze out joy and love to all people. It's more that you open your heart, which is kind to everyone, yeah? So the last thing to say then about metta, I'm sorry I didn't have a slide for this. I'll lead us through this practice, by the way, is we can use phrases. So we can use phrases, which is in the Metta Bhavana practice, we can say, let's say I'm doing metta for Kevin in the good friend stage. I can say, may you be well, Kevin, internally, quietly. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you grow and develop. So they're the four traditional phrases that we use. So may you be well, that's clear. May you be happy, that's clear. May you be free from suffering. So nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to have unhappiness in their lives. And may you grow and develop, which is a bit more of an unusual one maybe, but you could say that by growing and developing, that's where true happiness lies actually. So certainly in my experience, it's true growth and development, like meditation practices, that has led to the greatest satisfaction and happiness. So what we're trying to do then in the practice is get in touch with our hearts, open to a sense of friendliness, kindness towards ourselves and to other people, and allow that to grow. We can drop in the phrases slowly. May you be well, let them have an effect. May you be happy, let it have an effect. May you be free from suffering. May you grow and develop. You're not doing them robotically. May be well, may be happy, may be free from suffering, may you grow and develop, may be well. You know, you're just trying to evoke an emotional response. It can be helpful for people as well to, you know, tune in initially to a place where they feel well and happy, and out of that then comes metta for themselves. So remembering a time you're happy, remembering a time you're well. It can be good for people to imagine maybe a flower opening in your heart or whatever. So it's quite an imaginative practice. It's quite different to the mindfulness of breathing. You are trying to bring to mind the person and imagine them in their lives, for example, or hear their voice or whatever it is you need to do to bring them to mind, and then wish them well. Okay, so let's do the practice and we can see if there's any more questions then afterwards. So why don't you set yourselves up again in meditation. Okay, so why don't we just settle in, close our eyes, make sure our posture is supportive, that we're going to be able to sit for the next 20, 25 minutes, 20 minutes, say. Again, maybe tuning into the contact with the floor, with the cushions, with the chair. So doing what we need to do to tune into how we're feeling. How are we feeling right now? Are we at ease? Are we comfortable? What's our emotional weather like? And we'll begin the Metta Bhavana by tuning into ourselves and wishing ourselves well. So maybe starting by remembering a time or a place you're well and happy. Or if you're already feeling positive, you can just open to that. So metta is simply wishing yourself well, wishing that you're happy, having a sense of kindness towards yourself. I find opening with an attitude of tenderness to yourself quite a good one. It's being tender to what you find, being kind to yourself here. Maybe a kind acceptance of you as you are right now. Being kind to whatever emerges. So even if you're confused as to what to do, just allowing that in with kindness. Kindness towards the body, which allows us to do so much, even though it's imperfect. Kindness towards our emotions and our thoughts, allowing them to be there. Kindness to any aches and pains, be they physical or emotional. Maybe dropping in the phrases, may I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I grow and develop. Remembering that there's no reason to be unkind to yourself. There's no reason not to have a positive, kindly relationship with yourself. If there are difficult emotions emerging, just being kind to them, feeling them without getting lost in them. Just accepting that that's part of us too, to be doing that. They will pass. They're mainly just a story. Okay, and now bringing to mind the good friend you were reflecting upon earlier. So staying in touch with our own heart, our own guts, our own throat, wherever you feel your emotions right now. Staying in touch with your heart in particular. Bringing to mind the good friend. Imaginatively, perhaps having them in front of you or seeing them in their lives. Without trying to squeeze out anything that isn't there or force anything, just opening our hearts to them, wishing them well, wishing them happiness. You might say, may you be well. You can include their name if that's helpful. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you grow and develop. So again, staying in touch with our heart, with our physical experience, but also bringing them to mind and wishing them well. So opening to whatever we feel towards the good friend and seeing if we can wish them well and bringing them to mind. If we wander off, just coming back to this again, back to the body, and then the good friend. And now in the third stage, bring to mind a neutral person. So picking someone pretty quickly and sticking with the person, even if you're not completely sure they're neutral. Someone you don't have particularly strong feelings towards one way or the other. When you've picked someone, just tune in again to your heart, to your body, to any feelings of metta, and then opening your heart to the neutral person when you're ready. And it's normal that this will feel probably a bit more cool than the good friend because we're not emotionally invested with the neutral person. But opening with kindness, wishing them well, regardless. We might use the phrases, may you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you grow and develop. And if we get bored or we wander off, just coming back to our hearts again, our body and our hearts, and then opening again to the neutral person. And letting go of the neutral person and just tuning in again to our body and metta for ourselves again for a moment. And then bringing to mind choosing a difficult person, someone who you can manage, who isn't too much of a difficulty, but maybe you find a bit irritating or something like that. When you've picked someone, just trying to leave aside the difficulty, not dwelling on that, but just trying to see them as a human being just like you. Maybe imagining them in their lives doing similar kind of things to what you like to do. For example, with their families, being happy in the park, something like that, and seeing if you can wish them well, despite your difficulties with them, as one human being to another. And again, this might be difficult, and that's okay. It might be painful to bring them to mind, but trying to wish them well anyway. No human being desires to suffer. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you grow and develop. And if we find we've moved into something that isn't metta, just letting go of that, coming back to ourselves as much as we need to, and dwelling here for a moment if we need, and then re-engaging again when we're ready with the difficult person. And now in the last stage, we begin by opening our metta equally to all four people: ourselves, the good friend, the neutral person, the difficult person. If you like, you could imagine the four of you seated in a circle and just opening your heart equally to all of us, to all four people. May we each be well. May we each be happy. May we each be free from suffering. May we each grow and develop. Going beyond our likes and dislikes and just being open equally to everyone. And then expanding out to include all the people in the area around you. So you're not literally trying to send metta to everyone, you're just opening your heart, wishing everyone well in this area, this geographical area around you. Maybe we can also include everyone here on the course, all 90 of us, seeing if I can open to all of us as well in the different areas. Everyone in the city or town around you or countryside around you. Maybe we can open our heart now to everyone in the whole country that we're in. Imaginatively just wishing that they may be well and happy and free from suffering and growing and developing. Not forcing anything, but just imaginatively opening the heart. And being open then to everyone in the whole world, all beings everywhere. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings grow and develop. Okay, and now letting go of the practice, letting go of doing metta for anyone consciously, and just sitting for a few minutes, just sitting for a few moments rather. Just letting go of any effort to do anything, letting the mind do whatever it wants to do. Just staying in posture with our eyes closed. Then starting to broaden out our awareness, taking in the room around us, the people who might be in the building with us, the sounds we can hear. Gently reintroducing movement, wiggling fingers and toes, coming out in your own time, but maybe keeping your eyes closed for now. Coming back to a more regular seated position if you wish. Just for the last few moments now, just seeing how you feel after having done that. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Good. So that was the loving kindness practice, the cultivation of loving kindness. So I really enjoyed that, actually. I found it quite a strong experience of metta, of loving kindness there. You might have really loved that practice. You might have found it really challenging. We had to do it a little bit shorter than usual, so the guided meditation will be a little longer. Some people prefer it to the mindfulness of breathing. Some people prefer the mindfulness of breathing. It's fine to have a preference. Great, nice comments coming in so far. Good. I felt like it's hard to tell over the internet, but I felt like we were really doing it there together, which is great. So it's a very, very transformative practice, and many people find it much more transformative than the mindfulness of breathing. It is a very different practice to the mindfulness of breathing in that it's more imaginative and it's more involved and less simple in some ways. But lots of lovely comments coming in. Brought up a lot of emotions. It does bring up a lot of emotions. You know, you are opening a doorway in a way, for good and for bad, but it generally is very, very good. And it is hard to connect with yourself at the start. But so what I'd really say is to just be really kind to yourself about how you get on with it. You know, don't worry too much if you know, you find a particular stage difficult, or you can't let go of your ill will, or you don't feel much for yourself in the first stage. It really is a progressive practice that builds up over time, and you will notice effects over time, even if you don't notice it in a particular practice. Okay, so time is moving on. So feel free to put in some questions in a minute. All beings can include animals. Yeah, that's typically you've metta for all beings. So if you do this practice enough, you might end up being vegetarian. So watch out. I'll send you out the notes for this week's class. The homework this week, maybe you can't see that with the video, but I want you to continue to meditate every day. What I'd like you to do is to do the loving kindness practice twice for every once you do the mindfulness of breathing, if that makes sense. You know, so to do the metta bhavana 2 days in a row, then the mindfulness of breathing, then 2 more metta bhavanas and the mindfulness of breathing. And after next week, then we'll just alternate them each day. But this week, I'd like you to focus a bit more on the loving kindness practice. Yeah, and it does, Mary makes an interesting point. It does have a better quality when you do it with people. So don't forget, you can tune into various communal meditations. You could do both every day. You could do, some people like doing the mindfulness of breathing in the morning and the metta bhavana in the evening, or whatever way you want to do it. Miriam says, I'm wonderful. Thanks for that. That's always welcome, that kind of comment. Obviously, she's just done the metta bhavana. Is there a guided meditation recording for the metta? Yeah, there is. So I'll send you those as well. So there's a guided led through meditation. And just keep doing it. Yeah, I mean, if you're in lockdown, why not try do one of each of them each day? You know what I mean? Stretch yourself, because you've been doing very well in terms of the daily meditation practice. And then lastly, just to say, don't forget, if you want to, in your Metaful state, donate, you can do that at that link again. And I'll email you the notes, and I'll email you the recording of this class as well later on today. I mean, if you like that state, you could even just play that on YouTube and meditate along with that. Although the one on the guided meditations, the MP3 is a little longer, so you might be better off doing that one as well. Do feel free to ask any questions if you have any. Yeah, it's easier to do metta for other people than it is for yourself. It's strange that, but also the first stage, you're just starting off, so you're kind of still warming to the practice. For me, the first stage really is about just opening to myself with kindness and accepting how I'm feeling right now with a warmth and a tenderness, and that often is enough for me now, you know. Okay, so maybe what I'll do now is I'll allow you to unmute yourself if you want. So feel free to unmute yourself if you want. You don't have to. And I'll put on my headphones so I can hear you. And if you have any other questions, or you want to express anything, it can be a nice time to switch to gallery view as well, so you can see everyone as you're saying goodbye. Yeah, I can hear people. So best of luck with the practice during the week. Feel free to stay on if you want to ask any questions. And we'll see you next Thursday morning again. Yep.